محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So we're looking at Quran City, and in Quran City we've been focusing on Exiled Corner. With the children, I normally call this Naughty Corner. So you could call it Naughty Corner as well. Kind of helps sometimes. We looked at Sura Al Mutaffifeen and we looked at Sura Al Abasa. And if you remember, we did a sort of we went over Abasa and looked at VIPs and VI whatever, and it probably helped a little bit. But today we're going to look at Surah number 83, which is Sura Al Mutaffifeen. It's quite a lot to sort of take in. It's a bit like a tongue twister. But hopefully you won't forget it's 83 because it's got 3 F's in it. So that's quite easy to remember. 3 F's, 80, 83, quite easy to do so. It's a surah that if you recite for a child who cries a lot, it might help. We'll look at the benefits in a minute. It's safety from Jahannam, there's no accounting, and there's safekeeping, and we'll probably understand it as we go along. The focus of the surah is in essence that the origin of cheating is literally disbelief in accountability. That in essence is what it's all about. So if we look at why do people cheat, why are they mutaffifeen, that's because that they're I'm just adjusting it a little bit. Why are they mutaffifeen? It's because they don't believe in accountability. So if somebody was to ask you and me, what is the focus of Surah Al Mutaffifeen? The origin of cheating is the disbelief in accountability. And I'll explain taffafa in a minute so we understand it. These are the benefits that I talked about. And we're going to start literally with the first ayah. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wailul lil mutaffifeen. Now, wail in essence, and this is section 1. Sorry, I didn't say that to you. We've divided it into 4 sections. This is the first section, which is ayah 1 to 6. And it literally tells me who is mutaffifeen. So, mutaffifeen, wail is like awful destruction. Allah is literally very, very angry. He's angry at these human beings. So what do? Mutaffifeen comes from taffafa. Taffafa is somebody who cheats, but not cheats directly. Very, very sneakily. It actually means somebody who skims something from the top, and you may not even notice to skim a little bit extra from the top. In our language, in our times, we would look at somebody who would put the terms and conditions in really tiny writing, and you just sign it. And then when you have a problem and you look at it, you think, I didn't sign this. You didn't tell me about it. But they put the terms and conditions into really small writing. Or somebody who puts their CV and sort of perks it up with words and say things that they didn't do. Somebody who lies about it. So when Allah says, Wailul lil mutaffifin, it's not only talking about people who cheat straight on. It's those people who cheat very, very sneakily. You may not even notice it. So they shortchange you. And I mentioned last week that my cousin always tells me that these are people who put forks in the sugar bowl. So you can't even pick enough sugar up. But you don't realize that because they, something to take sugar with. Anyway, okay. He also tells me that when you shake your hands with them, you have to check how many fingers you've got back. Sometimes you only get 4 fingers back. So it makes me smile. But mutaffifeen in essence, if I can put it generally, it's somebody who skims a little bit from the top. You don't even notice. In our language, somebody who adjusts the terms and conditions and puts it in really small writing so you don't even notice. And then when you have a problem and you go to them, they say, really? I didn't do that. I was there. You didn't read it. They call you a liar. Now Allah says, Alladina. Now these are their characteristics. Who are they? Alladina. Idha ktalu. So when they want something, iktalu is to like weigh, a product weight. Wazan is there as well, but this is like the weight of the product. So when they want something, when they buy something, when they are doing business about something, ala nas, with human beings, yastawfun, they want total wafa, they demand full entitlement. You cannot give them any less. They will not agree. They want a little bit more. They demand total amount plus more for themselves. So they will bargain so much that you will think, okay, just take it. So they will even bargain with the person who's sitting on the streets who's selling fruit. but they're quite willing to pay a whole bunch of money at a posh restaurant. I'm just giving examples of today's times, okay? This is what we do. So, الَّذِينَ إِذَا اكْتَالُوا عَلَى النَّاسِ يَسْتَوْفُونَ. When they take from people, they take full entitlement. These translations are from the Quran. I'm not very, they're quite difficult to understand. Now let's see what they do. وَإِذَا كَالُوهُمْ. But when they weigh out, when they give by measure of weight, أَوْ وَزَنُوهُمْ, either they give a product or they give payment, يُخْسِرُونَ. They make sure that the other person is in loss. خسر, is loss. وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خسر. This is the khusr, the loss. So when they give by measure or by weight, they cause a loss. So they will always give a little, but they demand full. So we looked at mutaffifeen, somebody who cheats very sneakily, you don't even understand. When they want something, they want their full entitlement, but when they give, they always give a little bit less, or they give less than, they cause people to be at loss. Now why? Allah yadhunnu, Allah says, do they not think? Ulaika annahum mab'uthun. Do they not think that they will be resurrected? Ba'atha is to rise again. Do they not think that they'll be raised? They're going to be accountable? When? Liyawmin azim. On this difficult day. Azim comes from azm. Azm is a bone. A bone is hard. Something that is strong. A day when it'll be really hard. A strong day. Do they not think they will be there? My grandmother, my mother always used to say in Gujarati or Kutchi, she used to say, "Inke Allah jo khauf nahi?" Aren't they not scared of God when they do these things? That's exactly what this is talking about. يَوْمَ يَقُومُ النَّاسُ لِرَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. On the day when human beings, and it doesn't say when mutaffifeen, it says all human beings will stand before the Rabb of the worlds. So what we've got in ayah 1 to 6 is we have the crime. The crime is mutaffifeen, and at the end I will put it all together and you'll understand what I'm saying. So section 1 talks about the crime. The crime is sneakily cheating. Then it talks about, the second thing it talks about is your trial. So there is a trial, when you say you stand trial, we even say it in English. So we're going to stand trial in front of our Rabb. Now let's see, straight after trial, if somebody told you this is a court, people have gone to trial, you will say the next thing is sentencing. So the section 2 is now talking about the sentencing. Now let's see what happens. Kalla. He says kalla. My goodness. Remember I talked about kalla. I said it's like a rabbit's ears standing up when you want to hear. Kalla, listen up. No. Inna kitab al-fujjar. Now Allah is calling mutaffifeen another name. He's calling them fujjar. He says, indeed, in their book, in their record, kitab is record, in their record, they will be known as fujjar, lafi, and this record will be in sijjin. Sijjin comes from sijn. Sijn is a prison. It's like solitary confinement. It's like somewhere which is not very nice. So this record is kept in there for the fujjar. Now these mutaffifeen are called fujjar. Fujjar comes from fajr. Fajr, in the morning when you say fajr, the light tears through the night. It rips apart the night and it comes through. A fajr is someone who is extremely rebellious and tears through the sanctities of divinity. Somebody who can't care less, just tears through them. So, Kalla inna kitab al-fujjar lafi sijjin. What you and I have got to remember is that these mutaffifeen are now called fujjar in the records, right? So when you're sentenced and you've been cross-examined and your lawyers have seen everything that you've done and all the rest of it, now they tell you this is the result of what we see came out. In the beginning, you thought you just sneakily took some stuff, you changed those T&Cs and you thought nobody noticed. But Allah is saying you crossed the lines. You crossed the lines. You were rebellious. You tore through these lines because these people had no recourse. وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا سِجِّينَ. So my first question and your first question is, so what is this sijjin? What will make you know what sijjin is? So now he's saying what it is. Kitabun marqum. It is a book. Markum, I'm going to try and explain what markum means. Rakama is to embroid on cloth. It cannot be removed. Markum is to write something clearly and unremovable. Maybe I would call it Sharpie. When you write with a Sharpie, you can't rub it out. But this is even more than that, because the rakama is to raise. So, you know, if you, sometimes through time, things sort of rub out. But if something's embroidered in thick cloth on something, you can't rub it out. A logo cannot be rubbed out if it's stitched into it. So literally you can imagine a Sharpie stitched logo. So Kitabun Markum, he's saying it is a permanent record. What was the permanent record? They were first Mutaffifeen, then they were Fujjar. Now, Wailun Yawma'idhin lil Mukaththibin. First we had Wailun lil Mutaffifeen. Now he says, an awful destruction on that day to those who were Mukaththibin. Now he doesn't say Kadhibin. Kadhibin are those who lie. So forget about the lying, but Mukaththibin, when you talk about somebody who is Mukaththibin, it's literally calling somebody a liar. So they called their customers liars. They're the ones who, when people did honest business with them, they called them liars. They said, we didn't agree to this. Can you look in your T&Cs? You can see we put that clause in there. So they are people who called truthful people liars. So we've got Mutaffifeen, they're known as Fujjar, and now they're known as Mukaththibin. They called other people liars. They were the liars, but they called other people liars. Alladina. Now why again? Alladina yukaththibuna biyawmiddin. They are the ones who lied against the day of judgment. In other words, they didn't think they'd ever be accountable. They'd say, for something small like this, why would we be accountable? It was so tiny. Oh, nobody would even notice. But look what Allah calls them. Two other names. وَمَا يُكَذِّبُ بِهِ. And none lies about accountability. إِلَّا كُلُّ مُعْتَدٍ أَثِيمٍ. So he calls them two more names. He calls them mu'tad. Mu'tad is somebody who crosses the limits, who violates somebody's rights. But then he calls them athim. Athim, ithm is a sin. Athim is somebody who constantly sins 24/7. So, and a sin is that which prevents you from doing good. And he calls them athim because they may have thought that we just put a small clause, we only upped our profits a little bit, people didn't notice what we did, but the person who was affected is affected 24/7. That's why Allah calls them athim. Their consequences ripple through 24/7. Now he says their characteristics. So they're mutaffifeen, they're fujjar, they're mukaththibin, they're mu'tad, and they're athim. There are 5 names that Allah gives them. And they thought they did nothing. So he says, now this is their first quality or their first attribute. إِذَا تُتْلَى عَلَيْهِ آيَاتُنَا. When our signs are recited to them, when divine guidance is recited to them, قَالَ, they say, أَسَاطِيرُ الْأَوَّلِينَ. These are ancient stories. These are stories that are, tilawa. You know what tilawa is. Tilawa is to follow and read. So, Iza tutla comes from tilawa. Asatir comes from satr. Satr means lines. So, these are stories that are passed down from generation to generation. So they're saying these are just these stories that have been changed and passed down from generation to generation. That's number 1. But what happens to them? Kalla, Allah says, Bal rana ala kulubihim. They've got rust on their hearts. Ma kanu yaksibun. So all they earned, kasaba is to earn, all they earned from cheating people was that a rust imprint covered their hearts. Ran is this rust imprint. The moment you see, this is rusted. So Allah says their hearts have gone rusted. That's what they earned out of this money or out of the cheating that they did, or whatever, whether it was money or their word or whatever it was. Kalla. إنهم عن ربهم يومئذ لمحجوبون. They will, not at all, he says, they haven't got anything else they've earned, but إنهم عن ربهم, from their Rabb on that day, لمحجوبون, there'll be a hijab, there will be a barrier, so they will be blocked, they would have blocked themselves off from their Rabb, because they can only see themselves and the profit they've made. ثم, then, إنهم لصال الجحيم, then they will throw themselves in Jahannam. When they see the gravity of what they've done, they will throw themselves in Jahannam. And he says, ثم يقال هذا الذي كنتم به تكذبون, and it'll be told to them, this is what you denied. You said you didn't do this. You said it was nothing. You said it was so small. You said it was nothing to worry about. So here we've looked at the sentence that is past, and the sentence that is past calls them these names. It calls them Fujjar, it calls them Mukaddibin, it calls them Mu'tad, it calls them Athim, and then it gives us these qualities of what they are. It's scary. This is really scary. Now we come to the righteous. That's really cool. So whenever you read something like this, Allahumma ja' minhum, Ya Allah, make us of these people. So let's look at these people. Kalla. Listen up. Inna kitab al-abrar. Indeed, the books of the abrar. And remember last week we talked about abrar. I told you barara was angels because all of them are righteous. And abrar is used for human beings because they're those who wish to become righteous. So he says, the book of those who are righteous, lafi illiyin. It's not in some dungeon. It's not in some prison. Uliyin comes from ulu. It's like really high. It's like, it's free. It's out there. It doesn't need to be hidden. It doesn't need to be in a dungeon. You don't have to be put in there. It's just out there, up there. It's high. So one of the things we learn about these people who are abrar is that they are free. They are transparent, right? وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا إِلِّيُّونَ. He says, what will make you know? Just the same thing as Sijin. He's now saying, what will make you know what Illiyun is? Who are they? Who are these people? Let's see their record. Kitabun Markum. Exactly the same thing. Permanent record. Raised. Permanent record. Exactly what we saw in the last one. They have the same thing. They have a permanent record. So they have a constancy in their lives. So what do? Just as those people had a constancy of cheating, these people have a constancy of yashhaduhul mukarrabun. So they have a constancy. Now their book, by the way, their record is brought near. How can I put this? It's witnessed by those brought near to Allah. So they're quite happy. They know what their record is. Now we'll see. Allah doesn't mention their qualities. He doesn't say anything about them. He says their recompense. So what they are is all encompassed in the word abrar. So we'd have to go to Ayatul Bir to see who they are, which is Surah number 2, Surah Al-Baqarah, Ayah 177. So he doesn't mention their qualities because it's quite known who they are. But what do they get? Inna al-abrar lafi na'im. Indeed, those who are abrar, na'im is like blissful relaxation. So those who are abrar will be chilled out. They're there. They've got it made, in other words. So they're really chilled out. And he's describing their place in Jannah. Okay. All right. Alal araiki yanzurun. So they are on thrones, on couches. Araik, arika is singular. It's a large couch or settee in our language, full of cushions. It's a settee which is expensive, a settee which is really, really comfortable. But metaphorically speaking, that talks about basically saying they are on these thrones of dignity where they will be able to see, they will have a 360 view. They will be looking around in detail. Araik also has cushions, and if you remember way before we talked about cushions and we talked about mirfak. Mirfak is a cushion, and a friend's known as one of those whom you can lean on, where you can be comfortable. So they're really comfortable with what they've done. They don't have to worry about everything, and they have a 360 view on everything. In other words, they're looking at their intentions and actions match exactly the same. How will I know who they are? Quite easy. Ta'arifu. You will recognize them. Fi wujuhihim, with their faces. And what do their faces look like? Nadratan na'im. Nadra is a glow. It's a glow. There's apparent joy. And na'im we talked about. It's blissful. They're happy. Because they know what they've done. This is actually describing their reward, okay? So that tells you and me that there is a radiance about them that attracts you to them. There is this radiance of divinity there. Okay, what do they get? Yuskona, they drink. Saqi, somebody's getting. What do they drink? Min rahikim makhtum. So they have a drink which is called rahik. Rahik is the purest of drinks. And makhtum means it is sealed. It is sealed only to be opened by the one whom is given to. Now, if you look at very many tafasir, it will tell you the metaphor emphasizes the drinking of divine knowledge and becoming intoxicated with it, and it opens up to you. And when I talk about the Quran and I say we've got to approach it with intellectual humility, it means it talks to you. Its words talk to you. So Allah is saying, Yuskawna min rahikim makhtum. Alright, that is talking about Jannah. Here talking about to them, divine guidance is like it intoxicates them. They love it. They can't get enough of it. Can't get enough of the Quran. They can't get enough attaching themselves to Allah. They can't get enough of serving creation. And he says, Khitamuhu misk. It is sealed with a fragrance. And it doesn't necessarily have to be musk. Misk can also be a fragrance. So even when it comes to you, it comes with fragrance. It's just phenomenal. It makes you feel like it's got fragrance on it. And he says, وَفِي ذَلِكَ فَلْيَتَنَافَسِ الْمُتَنَافِسُونَ. And that's one, I love this. Absolutely. And he says, this is what you should be running for. This is what you should be competing for. This is what you should want in life. This is what you should vie for in life. Nafis is to run towards something that's exquisite, awesome. Something that you run towards, nufus, your breath, is like you run out of breath because you want it. And he says that's what you should want. This is what you should really want in life. Khitamuhu misk. So in other words, when we're talking about the world, we want to be able to get divine knowledge, to attach ourselves to Allah, and want to be one of those people who vies towards it. It's a beautiful ayah. وَفِي ذَلِكَ فَلْيَتَنَافَسُ الْمُتَنَافِسُونَ. Now what is this drink? He says, وَمِزَاجُهُ مِن تَسْنِيم. Mizaju is like a cocktail. It's like a mocktail. I don't know. What do you call them? Virgin mojitos, right? So imagine your mojito, okay? So this mojito has tasneem in it. What is tasneem? Tasneem comes from Sana. Sana is the hump of a camel. It's sort of the highest place in Jannah. So that stuff in there, we went to a restaurant recently and they served pomegranate mojitos. My goodness, they were beautiful. Okay, so it's like that. You sort of say, what's in this drink? So he says, وَمِزَاجُهُ مِن تَسْنِيم. And what is tasneem? أَيْنًا يَشْرَبُ بِهَا الْمُقَرَّبُونَ. So that thing that was mixed in it is from a fountain from which those who are muqarrabun, so near Allah, drink from it. So when you go for that drink and you're given a little bit of that drink, you're only given a little bit, by the way, and you say, what is this stuff in here? And he says, it's a fountain in Jannah, which is muqarrabun. So you want it too. So you say, I want to be there too. It's like, it just goes on. You want to learn more and read more and get closer and closer and closer. Okay, so that's up to ayah 28. Absolutely phenomenal. And now the last section. Bit scary again. Now this is talking about the Day of Judgment. It's taking you back to the Day of Judgment, and it's taking you back to people who are guilty. He says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ أَجْرَمُوا. Those who committed crimes. This is what they did. كَانُوا مِنَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا يَضْحَكُونَ. So the first thing they did was they laughed at those who believed. They belittled them. They looked down at them. يَضْحَكُونَ. ضَحَكَ. They laughed at them. What else did they do? وَإِذَا مَرُّوا بِهِمْ يَتَغَامَضُونَ. And when they passed by them, marru is to pass by them. يَتَغَامَضُونَ comes from غَمز. غَمز is when you do a gesture. Either you wink or you nudge. So I would say a nudge and a wink. And they would make you feel really small. People don't have to talk to make you feel really small. They just have to look at you, or they have to make some gestures about you. And it's not nice. It's quite difficult. Especially when you sit on a mimbar. When you sit up there and you're looking at the audience, sometimes you don't want to look at them because, oh my goodness, it's quite scary. It's probably better to look at the wall. وَإِذَا انْقَلَبُوا إِلَىٰ أَهْلِهِمْ. And when they return to their families, انْقَلَبُوا فَاكِهِينَ. They returned happy. Fakia is a fruit, like tasting really good fruit. In other words, they were happy that they had belittled those who believed. They were proud of mocking those who were believers. They came back feeling quite good. You know, today we did quite good. We put somebody down. I think I continually say there's one judge, position taken. When it's empty, we'll all apply. And in essence, in our lives, we don't have to put people down to look tall. We have to look at the good stuffs we have, expand on that, and forget about the others. We're always worried about what other people are doing. We don't have to. And this is exactly what it's saying. وَإِذَا رَأَوْهُمْ. Now, when they saw them, Mufassirin have various things on it, but I'll take one take on it. So when they saw those who were believers, قالوا, they said, إِنَّ هَؤُلَاءِ لَضَالُّونَ. These people have gone astray. They are misguided. In other words, they feel sorry for the believers. They feel sorry for Muslims. They say, what is wrong with them? Why don't they want to make money? Why don't they want to do these little things in business? It's supply and demand. Why don't they want to raise prices? Why do they want to be so fair? Okay, I'm just using our terms, okay. وَمَا أُرْسِلُوا عَلَيْهِمْ حَافِظِينَ. Again, Mufassirin here will say that two things. One is, it's the people who are wrong, who said, they haven't sent us keepers over us. Why are they telling us to do things good and tell us to be good? But on the other hand, it might be Allah saying we were not keepers over them. So read what you want. I would actually say, I would probably pick the bit where they said that they are saying, why are they correcting us? Those who are guilty are saying, why are these people telling us what to do? And finally, so the tables have now turned. Allah is saying, فَالْيَوْمَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنَ الْكُفَّارِ يَضْحَكُونَ. So on this day, those who believe will be the ones يَضْحَكُونَ. Now it doesn't say to the disbelievers they'll be laughing. It's saying other than those who covered up the truth, they will be laughing. So the tables have turned. Those who had covered up the truth will not be laughing, but those who are believers will be laughing. Please don't read this. This is a translation that was in the book. It's not right. They don't laugh at those who covered up the truth. They're the ones laughing, and those are not laughing now. And I don't understand why we even put translations like that. عَلَى الْأَرَائِكِ يَنْظُرُونَ. They're still sitting on their thrones of dignity, on their couches, on their settees, relaxed. And they're just looking, they're probably thinking, my goodness, that's what the world was about. I'm so glad I didn't cheat. I'm so glad I wasn't didn't do all those things. And Allah says, هَلْ ثُوِّبَ الْكُفَّارُ مَا كَانُوا يَفْعَلُونَ. Those who covered up the truth, they got their recompense. Thawab is recompense for what they did. Now, yaf'alun is action without intent. They were the thoughtless actions. They didn't think. Ya'amalun is when you think about it. So in other words, it's telling you and me, think before you do anything. Think through things. What are you doing? Why are you doing what you're doing? So I'm going to go over this and have a look. So let's have a look at this and see if you can take it through. So we looked at Mutaffifeen, okay? It started off Waylul lil Mutaffifeen. So the crime in essence was skimming off a little bit, thinking we will get away with it. Then they had a trial. They stand in front of the Lord of the worlds on the day of QIYAMA. And they have a permanent record. They're known as Fujjar, they're known as Mukadhibeen, they're known as Mu'tad, and they're known as Athim. So Fujar, ones who tears through the edicts of divine guidance, one who violates rights. Mukadhibeen, they make other people feel bad because they tell other people you're lying when they're truthful. Mu'tad crosses the limits. Athim, constantly sinning, and they're in this grey, dark sijin, this prison, their solitary confinement. It's awful. Why? Because they denied accountability. They called divine guidance mythology. They got rust on their hearts. They blocked themselves from their Rabb, and they threw themselves in the very fire that they denied. They did it themselves. Nobody did it for them. Look at the righteous. Illiyun. They are the Abrar, and they're Mukarrabun. And, you know, you can look at, we've got lots of videos on Ayatul Bir on the website. You can look at it. So Allah just tells you what you get them. They've got blissful relaxation. They've got thrones of dignity. They're able to look around 360. They're fresh-faced. They're radiant. And they have rahiq or tasneem. It's a pure drink. And then we go back to the qualities of the guilty on the day of Qiyamah. They make fun of those who believed. They wink and they nudge. They boasted of mocking those who believed. They felt sorry for them and they belittled them, saying, "Who are they to tell us?" And the consequence of their actions became that the tables got turned, and it happened that it was the believers who were laughing and these people were not. Now I'm going to show you a little bit about my Quran that you can see. And literally what I've been speaking, I actually write it all down. Sorry, that's Hinshiqaq here. That's Mutaffifeen. So literally what I'm saying, I'm literally writing it in. So when I read it, it's all up there. And what I summarized, I put down on a piece of paper here. I add it on, I put the building there, and I continue, if you look throughout there. And I will write everything down here. I've even got cocktails and mocktails and mojitos. So it reminds me exactly what I've done. So that in essence is